Hello, welcome to the Brickwork Ratings podcast, another series. Today, we are talking about the banking sector. How is it performing during the COVID 19? And we have a very eminent guest with us, Mr. Ashutosh Khajuria, ED and CFO with Federal Bank. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you very much, Ria, for having me here in your program.
So, today we'll try to understand the concerns and the real picture of the banking sector during the pandemic. Sir, please try to brief us on the same. How has the banking sector been seeing the credit offtake per se?
See, I think I'll just take you back pre-COVID period and all. I think there was a sort of stress in one particular large size bank. And as a result of that, there were some apprehensions in the minds of the depositors, whether to keep money with bank. If yes, then which bank, what type of bank, and all sorts of things. Fortunately, our bank, Federal Bank, never had a problem on the liabilities front, deposit front. And our patrons, our depositors kept, depositing money with us, and which is quite evident in our deposit growth in fourth quarter of the previous financial year and the first quarter of this financial year ending 30th June 2020. But there were some banks which really had for a short while some challenge on the deposit mobilization side. A couple of banks saw even degrowth in their deposit book. That was in the period January to March 2020. That was, I would say, pre-COVID, sort of, background to which, banking industry entered. As regards credit growth is concerned, over last almost 15 months or so, we have seen very tepid credit growth. That was partly because of the demand related issues. There was not much of a credit demand because maybe the slowdown in the economy was seen, and as such new investments were not coming in. Because of some fiscal related issues, even government spending took a pause. So all these factors put together had seen our growth rate, country's growth rate falling, and that is pre-COVID I'm talking about. I'm not talking of the impact of COVID then. With this background, the industry enters another shock, and that shock was a black swan event, in the sense, once in 100 years type of global issue. So this pandemic, this occurred, this spread its wings even in our economy, in our country as well, and resulted in lockdowns, and these lockdowns ultimately resulted in the closure of manufacturing activities, services sector, all put together. The only silver lining was seen in the primary sector, agriculture and allied activities. So whether it was horticulture or whether it was dairy, in addition to agriculture, which really saw good growth, because consumption probably did not get impacted as far as the primary articles are concerned. So milk, eggs, your daily provisions, bread, etc., and all that. Because in lockdown, your primary needs would continue to be what these were, and there was enough supply, and that really gave boost to agri sector as such. And because supply was also there, we had a good rabi crop. We also had good milk and dairy production and all these things. So there was not a surge in inflation, which in certain similar scenarios where you suddenly have a shortage of primary articles, you can see the steep rise in inflation. But that did not happen because agri sector did very well. Production was quite good, and the processing industry, which was processing the primary articles like your bread manufacturing, biscuits manufacturing, and various other things, which have their raw materials coming from agri producers, cheese, butter, your oil refining and all those things, it did very well. In fact, some of the companies made double the profit. You have the examples of Britannia, you see Amul and all those, honchos, they coming in public and telling that, these had been wonderful 2 quarters for them and all. So I think with that background, banking also had its own challenges, and these challenges fortunately were not on the confidence side, wherein some sort of negativity which was there in quarter 4 of the previous financial year, as I said, because of one particular episode, was taken care of, because central government, together with some banks, participated in restructuring of that bank, and the confidence returned, and there was an assurance that from the an authority as high as Governor of Reserve Bank of India, that we will not let any large commercial bank fail and all. So I think all these confidence building measures, and thereafter when COVID came in, a lot of liquidity was injected. On the other hand, you had central government acting fast to provide the lending side, and all the GECL loans, guaranteed loans to MSME on one hand, and on the other hand, Reserve Bank of India coming out with its moratorium program. Initially, for 3 months, there was a standstill for repayments for those who were not in a position to service their installment because of lockdown. And as the lockdown extended, lockdown went beyond May to June and July and all that. I think this moratorium period also was extended, because it was directly linked to the ability of the entrepreneur to produce and all. So with this background, banking industry also had its challenges and all. So I don't see any challenge for banking industry as far as liquidity is concerned, as far as resources are concerned, as far as deposit mobilization is concerned. But there certainly has been some challenge on the side of lending, because number one, you need people to start their activity in full throttle to enable them to draw fully their limits, which have already been sanctioned, because we have some of very good clientele and all who have cut on their drawing because they're saving on bank interest. It's not that they are fully drawn and then keep their interest burden on. So there had been at least for those enterprises which could afford to take a shock and all, they from their reserves, from their capability to face such shocks, had been in a position to withstand some of the expenses, have been paying the fixed cost and all that, incurring the fixed cost, and still trying to reduce their bank borrowings and all, resulted in credit growth being quite tepid. And as you see in the previous fortnight RBI figures, our credit growth is in single digit, 6% or so. Amongst the lowest in past four decades or so. So that's the background.
Going forward, are we expecting this growth trends to improvise? Probably in few months' time, do we see the single digit number turning double digits again?
So I think the world lives on optimism, and world lives on assuming that the normalcy would come back. So once the normalcy comes back, and you have with the demography that India has got, it's likely to push the demand up. And as I told earlier in my introductory comments, that primary sector has been doing quite well. And if primary sector does well, you are actually taking care of more than 50% of your workforce, more than 50% of your population. Though primary sector may be contributing to about 15-16% of GDP, but it employs nearly 55% of our workforce. And that at least takes care of the primary needs of a majority of the population. And one good step that has been taken on the policy front and on the front of rehabilitating is that when the migration happened, labor migration happened to their hometowns and all, villages and all, what was done was providing them at least food part of it, and that has been extended up to November. Now, if you have too much of agri production, what you need is making use of those stored grains or procured grains and all. And if that can be done efficiently, then you would have lesser pressure on the storing side. So new crop is coming in, you use the earlier ones that can be consumed. So if the support is being given in the form of 5 kgs a month type of wheat or rice, offtake from public distribution system, and 2 kgs of pulses and all, you will create room in warehouses, and these warehouses then can accommodate the newer crop, which again is a bumper crop. So without depleting your stocks and having enough room even beyond the food security levels. Food security levels suggest that India should have 20 million tons, nearly 2 crore tons of cereals and all, and we have more than 5 crore. So I think it's 2.5 times more than what is required for food security. So if this is not utilized, rather than giving cash in the hand of fully in the form of cash in the hands of underprivileged and all, it would be better to give some part in the form of food grains and some in the form of cash component. So number one, the consumption of those grains would happen, and there would be a movement from those warehouses of all those stocks to the ultimate users where exactly these are required. And then with fresh crop and all, you can refill that already I think is refilled, but still challenges when monsoons are coming, your these stores, your stocks would rot, and that's a very big challenge if it's kept in open. So we not only have to procure from farmers, providing them minimum support price or something like that to run their grihasti, as it's called, to run their livelihood and all. On the other hand, we also have to take care of the preservation of the stocks that have been procured and all. So I think if the support was required to be given from the government, a good way of doing it was in the form of more of a kind than cash. So that helps you on two fronts. So I think that's one part. On I think agri sector being taken care of, you are by the nature, and even in Kharif, the sowing is at least 20-25% higher than same time last year. So rains also have been quite good, and IMD predicts that it's going to be a La Nina effect rather than El Nino. So I think La Nina is associated with ample rains and all. In fact, we have other challenge of floods and other deluges and all that. So I think hopefully even Kharif should do well. If Kharif does well, Kharif you have the crop of paddy, and main crop is paddy, and then you have maize and various other things and all. And I think if that does well, then we can expect a very good festival season coming, which in India is always marked with a busy season. In fact, right now we have bi-monthly review of monetary and credit policy. Earlier we used to have two: slack season policy and busy season policy. Slack season means from April to September, and busy season used to be from October to March or October to April, second half. So I think if the base for that busy season is becoming sound and positive, then I think there's all the reason for that optimism, which you raised a question on, and which you were saying how, going forward, what's going to happen. And by that time, I think by 31st August, even moratorium would be over if it's not extended further. And you would know the behavior of how your credit quality is. Each bank would be, they're already working on, talking to individually to their borrowers, their clients and all. And going by whatever reports are coming in, the position is not as bad as it was originally expected. So if you see the numbers from almost all banks, their moratorium percentages also are drastically falling as we are moving towards 31st August. So people have come back to repay their installments and all. Some who have restarted their economic activity, the production, the processing, the servicing and all those things, they are not wanting to increase the interest burden, and they are coming back to banks, and banks are able to explain to them that it's not a loan waiver, it's not even an interest waiver and all that. So better you be prepared for the interest cost as well. And I think those who have not lost their jobs, those who have been able to withstand this shock and all, are back with full strength and all. And of course we are right now through probably the peak period of COVID and all. So looks like this is the peak, and from here we'll have the fall coming in. That also gives a sort of optimism, because we are already at closer to 50,000 a day type of number and all. Hopefully, and I pray that remains the peak, and we from here on see the fall. And yeah, and we have very good recovery rate that way. Mortality rate in India is amongst the lowest in the world, and that's a good sign to rather have hope and be optimistic. So yes, people go out of their productive so-called hours, either because of lockdown or being quarantined, whichever way. So some 2 weeks, 3 weeks are lost and all that. And as far as lockdown is concerned, in certain areas like Mumbai and all, almost 4 months have been lost in.
True.
But I think gradually it looks like the activity is moving towards or inching towards normalcy.
Correct.
And I wish
So coming to the
that happens.
Yeah. So coming to the investment part of it, sir, being a bank, we have seen that the at this moment banks are the bigger investors other than mutual funds or any other institution. So I would like to understand, how do you see the asset quality post moratorium?
So
Which
Ria, that's a
avenues look very
billion.
attractive to you?
So Ria, that's a $1 billion question. I think there are various models through which people are trying to predict it. We in our bank also have our integrated risk management department has developed an engine through which on a with a defined periodicity, they are just looking at the performance and operations and loan accounts, and observing the credit quality sector wise, also sector wise, geography wise, and all the that work is going on. But I think please remember, this is something which has happened once in 100 years. So you do not have the historical
Any baseline
so-called
structure?
lessons.
Yeah.
So you don't have past lessons, because if 100 years back if you go, there was not so much of documentation of event on one hand, and banking had not reached a level where it is now. So you do not have those analytical tools also based on which at that time you would have had certain results which could be helpful now. So it's starting ab initio. So I think that's another challenge which I think is there,
But
being
are there
a
any
real
product segments which you see maybe in your own personal view, wherein you see that these would be certain segments, like you mentioned in your earlier comments that agri and primary activities have been pretty good. The economic activities on those front has been good. So any segment which you see that these product segments will be the most deteriorating, that these are not the segments where we can invest at this moment.
So I think it's quite obvious, when you have lockdown and all, your travel and tourism will go for a toss. Your hospitality sector, hotels and all, that particular area, if you have finance given against that, they would have a pause. I'm not saying accounts will go bad and all, because you have a strong collateral to back it. If you have finance for a hotel, there is a building there, structure there, all that, that has been put there. But there is a pause. So for 5-6 months, they are not having good business. So it's not generating surpluses to, service the loans and all that. And these are some areas where probably I think we should think of restructuring, or, subject to what all, regulator permits, and also, which a bank, if there is no general sort of direction from, regulator for a sector as a whole, then banks can individually take a call and reassess the viability of that particular project, and look at providing relief or some moratorium, though initially the account would get classified as a non-performing loan, NPL, going by the extant guidelines of RBI. So if you restructure it, it may turn into NPL. So we are not sure, because we would wait for 31st August to come and see if there is any sector specific thing. But as you are asking for specific sectors, then I'm sure aviation would be another one which would have a big challenge, again associated with travel and all. So travel, tourism, aviation, these are the sectors where the stress would be the highest. Primary sector is the one which is seeing the positive. I think whether it is horticulture, sericulture, pisciculture and all those things, I mean, I'm not seeing any challenge on that part, because gradually even the demand of marine products has gone up, and that's from our own experience in our bank. So they are getting fresh orders, they are getting orders at very good prices and all. So cashew processing, I mean, all those agro processing and agro related areas are coming back, and they probably are better than last year. So you have the positive side on one hand, because being headquartered in a state where we have this marine and cashew particularly, I'm giving you a sort of our experience and all. Similarly, your pharmaceutical side is overall doing, and there are so many reports coming out and all, so they are doing well. Your hospitals and polyclinics and I mean, that pharma sector as a whole, I mean, entire chain, diagnostics to treatment to prevention to health related services and all. So whether it is online counseling, or whether it is I mean medicines to be procured and all these things, I think your dispensaries, your druggists, chemists, druggists, they all are having a good time, looks like, I mean, that's one. And people have gone in for immunity booster. So I don't know how many of these products are genuine and backed by medical experts, and how many of these are just driven by consumerism and all that. So I think all this put together, these are the sectors where you see a good uplift. And then comes the commodities and all that. See the way I mean, commodity prices have shot up and all. Even prices of aluminum and copper, which had seen a dip in 2018-19, almost at bottomed out. From there, you are seeing the rise and all. So some other industries, and then lots of restrictions on I mean, dumping and all related things. So I think Indian manufacturers on steel, aluminum and all that should also see better days ahead. So I think it's a mix. On one hand, on one extreme, you have the travel, tourism, aviation related, setback, a huge setback. Some in between, partly impacted, some partly growing vis-a-vis last year, and some in a very good shape. So it's a spectrum. So it's a mix of all, I think. Yeah, because of lockdown, even the sectors that were very good initially had a setback, because you are not letting anything open. So if it's closed, for 2 months, 3 months and all that, then suddenly I think entire activity was at standstill. Right. That part has now been taken care of.
Right. So what is your take on the interest rates for FY21?
So I think as far as the direction of the monetary policy is concerned, I think that it would be easing. I mean, it would be on the side of easing, erring on the side of easing and all, or pause. I don't see suddenly the policy, taking the interest rates up, because if it has to push growth and all, they will keep the interest rates soft. Now, but how much of that is transmitted, and how much of that people believe that would remain soft because of fiscal math being so tough, and you have a huge, fiscal deficit, already there, and their challenge on raising revenue, particularly taxes and tax revenue and all, because when the economic activity goes down, naturally the tax revenue is a function of the economic activity there, ultimately it's linked to either production or sales or whatever it is. So I think that's one particular area where, I think people are, I mean, the investors are worried about rates shooting up with a threat of inflation going up as a result of, the fiscal deficit being too huge. But we are very fortunate and lucky that on external front, we do not have any issue. And our reserves are growing. And why reserves are growing? Because people have faith in Indian economy. Lot of FDI money is flowing in. Reliance alone has brought in a huge chunk of dollars into India. And if people from outside put money here, that takes care of your partly, so-called anemic capital formation domestically. So it helps you in, getting somebody else's saving being invested in India, and in one form or the other. So I see maybe more reforms coming on the FDI side. You may find certain sectors where you had the sectoral caps at a lower level being raised. So let's see. I think that we'll have to wait and watch. But looks like, I think on external front, we do not have much of a challenge, and at all-time high, reserve levels of more than $500 billion is something which is partly taking care of our other challenges.
What is your take on the bond market at this current juncture, and how do you see it going forward? Because of the rate cuts which are given by the RBI and so many other measures given by the regulators, we have seen so much easing coming into the bond market. However, on the corporate bond side, I would say there is not much pickup in the lower rated companies. So, how do you see the trends at this moment?
So inflation being where it is, and also, a number that is being pursued as part of monetary policy, which is 4% plus minus 2%, and current CPI being closer to 6% and all, the upper band and all, I think 10-year GSEC yield at 590 levels or so, 580, I mean, depending upon whether you are taking the new 10-year bond or an old 10-year bond, it's ranging between 580 to 590. That level seems quite reasonable. I mean, if you are having inflation at 6, but with an expectation that inflation may go down, so go down and move towards 4%. Why that comfort? Because your CPI has a very high weightage for primary articles. Food has an important role to play, and if you have good crop, if you have good production happening, at least on the primary primary side and all of economy, then I think there is a hope that these prices would soften with opening up, because part of inflation is because of lockdown as well. How to move the goods and all. So with opening up and with more of frequent movement of goods and services, there is a likelihood that CPI may come down. And if CPI comes down and moves towards 4% or so, you may see some more softening happening on the sovereign front. And because sovereign is at a level where it is 10-year at say 580 to 590 range and all, you can't expect corporates to borrow any cheaper. Though in the recent past there has been quite a lot of correction in the spreads, because after that Franklin Templeton episode and all, suddenly the spread over sovereign had just shot up, and there was a challenge even for good quality debt papers, corporate debt papers. And then with a lot of support from RBI as well through TLTROs and various other things, I think more issuances coming in from the NBFCs and all. I think the situation is now much better, and the spreads have come to more logical levels or so. Logical. I'm not saying that what are the correct levels or incorrect levels, because market is the guard. Market decides where the yield should be, and nobody should dictate there and all that. But going by the policy roadmap, and going by what is the intention behind those policy matters, cutting interest rates, softening and all that, and expecting the system to transmit that and all through various means, and following it up with even banks and others who are in this sector, looks like I think interest rates would remain soft for some time. But that fear, that apprehension of fiscal deficit being too high and therefore impacting the inflation, and therefore inflation leading to interest rate hikes and all, is keeping some of the investors to remain in the shorter end of the yield curve. So up to three years, up to 5 years, and all that. And only insurance sector and provident funds probably are looking at long-term bonds and all. So therefore, there is a steepening of yield curve. So on the shorter end, you have a faster fall, which is very close to policy rates and all, and it is being dictated by the policy rates and liquidity in the system. Whereas the longer one is having a huge, gap, huge spread. So 10 to 30 year spread also is quite steep, and overnight to 10 years also is quite steep. So your overnight repo rate is at 4%. Effective rate right now is reverse repo, which is 335, because system is in liquidity mode. So everybody is dumping money on RBI rather than borrowing from RBI. So your call money rate goes by which side the market is. So your call money rate, interbank rate, is closer to reverse repo.
Right.
If reverse repo is at 335, that becomes the effective rate, de facto policy rate. So at 335, reverse repo rate is there, and at 590, 580, even if you take the new 10 year, then you have a huge gap of about 245 to 250 basis points. 335 plus 250 will make it 585. So I'm taking the midpoint. So about 250 basis point spread of overnight to 10 year is very, very rarely seen. I have not seen, at least in last, pre this crisis, I have not seen this type of spread. Overnight to 10 year being 250 basis points, and then from 10 year to 30 years again is another nearly 100 basis points or so.
Do you see banks' interest coming back in the securitization market?
See, that depends, I think securitization is a true sale and all, and that depends, what type of pool is being securitized. So what is the, strength of that pool, and what type of rating that pool has got, what type of credit support has been offered and all, credit enhancement. So based on that, I think banks are taking call,
So one important last question would be, are you expecting more measures from the regulator to fasten this pace of recovery?
Recovery will have to be done by banks. I think regulator can at best, give you one-time restructuring sort of thing in select sectors, and that is what the grapevine is. I don't know how far is that correct also, but if it's for a select, highly stressed sectors, if that is allowed, then I think to that extent it is a deferment of the problem, and thereafter, based on the viability of individual enterprise, individual, proposition, it would decide, how going forward the credit quality would behave, would maintain itself.
So before ending this session, I would like to have 3 to 4 questions, which would be like a rapid fire to you. You have to just precisely answer me back on those. So the questions would be, so where do you see the interest rates going forward? Like, for example, by end of FY21, where do we see the repo rate?
Repo rate may remain where it is at 4%, but we may see the sovereign rate going up a little bit, 10-year benchmark and all. Reason being, I think the expectations for next financial year could be that we may see rate hikes.
Okay. Sir, the next question would be, where do you see the what you call the recovery stage to be? Do you see it to be, as you mentioned in your earlier comments, you said that we see that this is the ultimate number. Now we would see the fall of cases. So we are already seeing the recovery, hope, as you mentioned about the optimism. So going by that, by when are we seeing this, pacing up?
See, we'll have to live with COVID. It's not something which will disappear, because if you just take the example of Spanish influenza, Spanish flu in 1918, I understand it continued for 2 years, 1918 to 1920. So I think we have to, because either the herd immunity gets developed, or the vaccine gets developed, or the treatment gets stabilized. Either way, it may take some time. So when we have to live with it now, how cautious we are and how we discipline ourselves would be the test. So whether it is second wave, third wave, or whatever it is, would depend on the behavior of the citizenry. So I think a lot of public so-called sharing of information and messages or all sorts of awareness is being spread and all. Let's see how much we learn from it and behave accordingly. And if recovery rate in India is good and it's about 63-64% already and moves towards 80-90% and all, then I think people, that fear in the mind also will subside, and you would take it like any other disease. And as soon as the symptoms are known in early stages itself, you would look at the medical support and all.
So you earlier mentioned about the FDI, coming in a very huge amount in India. So would like to understand in very precisely from you. Are we seeing FPIs also, being stable now? Because I think the data shows last this month and previous month, they have again become positive.
So it's something like, they would see, this is basically a competition between various economies. So there is something called flight to safety. If they think everything is going to dogs and all, they would run to the most stable and most developed economies and all. And they will immediately withdraw the money from developing economies and all. If India could, take care of its, its people on the, COVID front and all, and is coming out of it and all, there is no reason why they should not come back. So once they think that this is the worst we have seen, and from here on there could be an improvement, because the market works on the expectation theory. Efficient market theory simply says that the future events are discounted well in advance and they get shown in the price, that day's price. So there is no reason why they should not come back, because if you are having near zero type of returns on debt papers, sovereign debt papers globally, even US to that extent is about 50-60 basis points. And you have India where 10-year benchmark is quoting at 6%, closer to 6% or so. And if you see that, the economy is stable on external front, they have enough dollars to pay back, and all these things, comfort levels are there and inflation is under control, then I think they would see interest rates going down, and then they would immediately come in for investment in debt papers as well, leave apart the equity alone. Then I think always remember, they are fair weather friends. They are the ones who just go for, their perception and their expectation of how the economy would behave, say 6 months from then, 1 year from then, or 3 years from then. They are not the FDI guys who have got married to an Indian enterprise or Indian industry or a particular sector and are going to stay there for decades rather than weeks and months.
True. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your amazing views. I think you explained each and every point in so much of detail. I would like to thank you from on behalf of the whole Brickwork Ratings as well. Hope to see you very soon in person as well, and hope to have more sessions with you.
Thank you, Ria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Brickworks.